Okay, so I'm here inside of ZBrush right now. Just wanted to show you what I was kind of doing to create that density map. All I really did was bring this file back in here. I actually didn't even bother using my original ZBrush file. I simply re-exported out an OBJ with the UVs. I added some subdivisions and I painted this map. I flooded it with this white color and then added black over to here on the bottom, the hands. And you can see I kind of extended it a little bit further. Kind of bring that in right there. Just kind of right into there. So they'll have some varying densities over there. So I'm just kind of softening that line a little bit. Okay, so I love using ZBrush for this kind of work. It's just so much faster for me than inside of Maya's paint tools. Okay, so to go ahead and quickly export this texture, I'm going to go over here to UV map and tell it, let's make a 2K texture. That way I'll get some really nice resolution along that area that has all of those UV seams. What I'll do then is go here to texture map, and I'm going to say to make a new texture from Polypaint. There we go. Now I want to go ahead and copy that over to my texture slot over here. So I'm just going to hit clone texture. And the last thing before I export this that I want to do is make sure I flip this texture, because ZBrush, for whatever reason, uses textures that are flipped in the V, which is different than Maya. I'm not sure what's technically correct, but what I do know is that this is not correct for Maya right now. So I'm just going to go up here to texture, and I'm going to go ahead and hit flip. And there it is. And all I need to do now is export it out. To do that, all I have to do is, oops, something stuck over there. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and click on it over here and say export. And I'm going to save it here to my source images. I'm not going to save over the old file, even though I could. I'm just going to go ahead and call this density final. Let's not do that. I tell everybody never to use the word final. Density version 02. Go ahead and save that. Okay, and let's go ahead and jump back into Maya. Okay, I'm actually in lesson 06 begin again, pretty much where we left off last time. I'll turn this visibility back on, why not? Let's jump over to our primitives. We're just going to go ahead and make sure we load that new map in. So let's jump to our Hypershade. This same map over here under textures. I'm just going to load in my density version 2, which actually isn't appearing here. Oops, that's because I'm probably in the wrong folder. Let me actually move up right here. There it is, density version 2. Go ahead and load that in. And let's start that paint tool. I'll jump here to XGen, hit paint. Let's see if that loaded correctly. It did. We could see there's that extra little white right there. Let's go ahead and preview this. Okay, that did not seem to work. Looks like there's something caught in memory over here. Let me go ahead and probably kill out this current preview, and we'll turn off our grooming splines over here. And I know what I did. Stupid mistake. I did not hit save. That same thing I told you guys to do 50 times. I bet it'll work now. Let's go ahead and preview. And yep, we can see the fur now extends out. I'm just checking to make sure there's no error. I want to make sure I don't have any little bits on the fingers over here. Let's check this hand over here. That looks good too. The bottom over here has a few that kind of landed over there. I bet those are things I could probably fix in the 3D paint tool in here. There seem to be very minor fixes where it just kind of slid down a bit. Let's check the top. And that one actually seems to have ended up just fine. Let's go ahead and fix this over here. I'm just going to go back to my paint tool. Let me go ahead and shrink my brush down a bit. Bring up my paint options here. We're going to make sure we're painting black. And I'm just going to come over here and just kind of paint away those areas a little bit. Chances are my resolution might have been a little too low in those areas. Could be a variety of different things, but we should be able to fix this. And I could always go and make some adjustments inside of ZBrush if I need to. Let's go ahead and save that and re-preview. And you can see that's getting fixed now. In fact, there's only just this little bit left right here. And save, re-preview that. Oops, zoom out a bit. Okay, I think that's going to be pretty decent. Still a few that stick out strangely. Again, I'll delete anything later on that's not looking like it's working. Okay, gonna make sure this is saved. Let's go ahead and exit out of this tool. And let's go ahead and start talking about beginning to comb our fur. Now for combing fur, I'm not interested in actually seeing these tubes. I'm going to go ahead and click this button here to clear that out. Jump into grooming, and let's turn on our visibility. Okay, so first thing, as I mentioned earlier, we want to pick a density. And even though this looks pretty decent, it looks like there's a lot here. Switch to cards as well. I think I'm probably going to need a bit more. Let's actually try 80. I know I mentioned 100 earlier. I bet 80. Just wonder if I'm going to give myself more problems later if I don't go higher. 90. I think that'll work. That's one of those where if I go a little bit higher, there's still enough here that it should interpolate fine. Again, I'm in interpolate mode over here. And again, I changed my colors I mentioned earlier, something I could see easier. What I also did is I slightly adjusted my width. It was 0.1, I made it 0.05. It's just a little bit easier to kind of see the cards. They don't look as big of a jumbled mess like they do right now. That's something I'll adjust as I kind of keep on working. So we're ready to start combing. So let's go ahead and start talking about these tools. Now there's a lot of them here, and we're going to cover them in a series of lessons. But the three main ones I want to talk about are pose, orient, and bend. Those are going to be our big important ones. So pose is actually a combination of orient and bend. And it's really what you're going to use mostly for combing your fur. Let's say I select orient over here. First of all, we have a couple different options here. Notice I have spacing. Think of this like the spacing inside of your brush in Photoshop. So the larger the spacing, the kind of the less even the effect is going to be. Magnitude is your strength. The higher this is, the more they're going to actually kind of lean over. And you can set different fall-offs, Gaussian, smooth, linear. And you can also change whether your mask is working within or outside. We'll talk about masks later, though. And all you need to do is begin brushing across the surface. Now, I prefer to do this with a Wacom tablet. It's not necessary, but for me, it's just a little bit easier. And you can see we can now begin combing our fur. Now, we're only changing the orientation. We're kind of just almost bending the fur kind of over. You could see they're kind of just moving right there, but they're not deforming. Now, sometimes it's a visual trick. It almost looks like they're deforming, and maybe they are. I'm not 100% sure, but for the most part, it looks to me like they just kind of lean over. By the way, you can, again, switch anytime you want between lines and cards, whatever is easier for you. Sometimes I'll actually switch to lines just because it feels a little easier, though almost always I end up using the cards over here. Now, the other one, which is our bend, doesn't actually reorient the hair or change its kind of rotation on the surface. It kind of just bends the tops of the hairs over. Go ahead and zoom out there a bit. Okay. And pose, again, as I mentioned, combines both of them. And you could say how much orientation versus bend you want. And this really ends up working kind of like your kind of end-all, be-all combing tool. Now, this is not the comb I'm going to end up using. This is me just showing you how the tools work. You can see they're pretty simple, pretty straightforward. However, before we end this lesson, I want to quickly talk about mirroring. Now, to mirror from one side to the other, we have these buttons here. Flip to right, flip to left. I think this naming convention is downright idiotic. What the heck is left and right in our scene? We deal with positive X, negative X. Or, if you built different direction, positive Z, negative Z. So this can be confusing. What it's actually doing is flipping from the actual character's left, in my case that's positive X, to the right. So that's what flip to right would be. Flip positive X to negative X. This could be confusing because you might be thinking maybe like kind of stage directions. You have screen left, screen right, stage left, stage right. And if you do this wrong, flip to left, notice what happened. I just flipped the uncombed side over, and guess what? Your undo tool does not work. So be very, very careful. Kind of stop and think. You want to flip his left to his right. So we'll go ahead and click that, flip to right, and you could see worked like a charm. So just be careful, and always, if you're not sure, if it's confusing you, save before you do it. Okay, so let's go ahead and end this lesson here, and in the next lesson, we'll look at a couple other brushes, and we're going to begin creating our overall groom for our character. So I'll see you guys there.